Hot Private. This is the War on Comics. I'm Colin.
I'm Omar.
It's our Father's Day special.
It's such a beautiful, beautiful way to celebrate.
We are recording this on Father's Day and at the dawn of 4th of July, and we have a very heavy comic that deals with both of those issues, patriotism and fatherhood. I think it is fair to say that this is all jokes aside, like a very heavy subject matter comic. So if you're not in the mood for, I don't know if there's any like taboo or dark subject that this comic doesn't touch on.
Yeah.
So I think if you're adverse to hearing about heavy stuff, click on another video today. Come back maybe when you're ready for it.
Yeah.
No judgment here, but yeah, very intense book. I have championed this book for a long time. You hadn't read it before. Tell the people what you thought.
I thought it was an incredible exploration on brutalities, and I practiced that. I was like, how can I sum this up?
Yeah.
Yeah, this is...
I appreciate that, for sure.
I definitely, like I was saying earlier, this isn't like something that I would dive into, horror comics in particular, but this is up here, like it's up there for me. It's just a comic.
Very intense read. I think the thing that I took away from it this time on the reread was like, there are zero shortcuts. There's no cut corners, there's no easy way outs, both in terms of story, in terms of characterization, especially in terms of art.
Yeah.
It is one of the most just stunning comics that you'll ever look at, and all in black and white, which I guess technically that could be seen as a shortcut, but that's obviously a fool's way of thinking.
Yeah.
You'd be a buffoon to think that this was an unfinished comic because it's in black and white.
That's doo-doo brain thinking.
Yeah, that's the word for it, doo-doo brain for sure. So, without further ado, shall we crack into this bad boy?
Let's get into it.
All right, so I think it's kind of important actually to spend time on the cover, because this is kind of like a detailed panel from inside the book, and it's kind of unappealing in a lot of ways. Like, I don't know that this sells you on the book. Of course, it's like kind of, but at the same time, it's the perfect encapsulation of it. It made me really think about when this moment happens in the comic, like why Barry Windsor-Smith chose to pick this detail. And, I think the American flag there, like kind of jammed into his ear, this like homunculus monster man, even if you don't know anything about the story, it is a story. I took a lot of patriotism from it, and the idea of patriotism. I don't know, it really spoke to me reading it now as opposed to when it came out, just because I think personally I've had this like strange relationship with patriotism over my life, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And on one hand, there are points in life where I've seen it as like maybe something useful as a tool, like to have a love for a country as opposed to a government, and basically something that could aid a person in getting along the path of sort of like looking out for other people. Like maybe just thinking of an entire biosphere is like too much for a person to handle, and I think it is realistically too much for someone to really truly feel compassion for the entire planet. So maybe you sanction off a little bit, call it a country, and it's like, well, maybe you can have love for the people of the country. And I think what this reading into it this time around, I think my difficulty with that even ultimately is that American patriotism is particularly, that's where we're filming from, it's just been so perverted and distorted, and it really is just a one-way street to nationalism, which is a one-way street to fascism, and it's a toothless version of those things, but it's still a passage to those things. And something I didn't really pick up the first time around, or just kind of glossed over, because it's not a small part of the story, it's like integral to the story, is the supernatural element, and this idea of kind of ghosts, if you will, or spirits or specters haunting objects. And I think maybe, and this is, like I said, just maybe my own extrapolation here, but like kind of like a nation can be haunted.
Yeah.
You know, like a nation can be this distorted figure. And I think
or at least be represented by, like, just as I think patriotism can be like a symbol,
right,
like the American flag. Like, I see where you're getting at with him. This image too is representing that patriotism. It's like a zombified version of it, like a perverted version of that.
And sort of, you know, maybe a more straightforward look, instead of like, you know, Captain America's idealism. You know, and I'm thinking of Captain America for a reason, because this is, of course, plays footsie with a lot of those like 60s Marvel ideas. I guess Captain America goes back further than that, but for the sake of conversation,
I think he came back in the 60s. So
right.
You know.
And so like this is, whereas Captain America, and there is a part of me, Jesus, this is a difficult thing. I don't mean to not meander here.
No,
but
we're good.
I there is something that like makes me feel good about like Captain America, specifically the character being this like idealistic, like good dude. You know, like there is some buried over part of me that does kind of appreciate like the American flag and the ideals this country stands for and everything, but I also just can't escape that specter, you know, and there's no way of kind of avoiding just our nation's history, and very much so our nation's present, where it's like I know this is very like edgy high schooler take to just be like, well, this is a nation founded on slavery and genocide and imperialism. Like, how can I possibly be proud of this country? And you know, the retort is like, well, find a country that isn't. And I'm like, well, that's kind of my point. Is that if every fucking country on earth is
founded on that kind of shit,
then what? If we're all haunted, then what is the fucking point of patriotically clinging to these ideals that, you know, again, when you look them in the face, this is what stares back at you. They're monstrous. And I don't, on one hand, I think there's not really a benefit. I don't think there's a benefit to patriotism, but I really don't think there's a benefit to anti-patriotism. Like, I don't know that like saying America sucks or burning a flag or something necessarily like helps wages increase or makes life more livable for people. Like
actual practical effects.
Yeah, has any like removing of the boot off the neck of the third world that our country depends on. So I don't think it's an answer in and of itself to just be like, I hate America. But
yeah, it's too simple. That's like what I would say is, I've heard this on, I think, have you heard of that guy Slavoid?
Oh, yeah.
Something like that. So he's like a fan of Christianity as like a thing. He's not like a Christian or anything.
Zizek, right?
Zizek. Kind of has like that Donald Duck thing going.
Yes.
So I think it was him who said that for a force, there needs to be like the anti-force, and they're one and the same. And it's like the anti-patriotism is like that faithful opposition that like they're there to play the part. As much as you want to oppose that force, you're there basically lifting up that other force by existing, because then they have a reason to do that, to like, not to say that patriotism is inherently anti something. I think that now it kind of is leaning that way because it's being worn as a costume by hateful people, I would say. And
at some point, I think you just have, you know, you could say, well, that's not really what it's about, but, you know, is a function of a system, its outcome, you know, like if all of these flags being waved the hardest are by monstrous people,
Yeah.
do you really want to associate yourself with monstrous
Yeah.
people?
And that's a key. I think that is, you're touching on like what the theme is, what Barry Windsor-Smith is saying is that this character is not the monster. The monster is like, the monsters are those people that did this to him.
Right, which is essentially everyone
Yes,
as we get
everyone
into
in his life.
as we get into this, and it like I think it's worth pawing through. I don't really have a lot of like, oh, you got to see this page or that page,
Yeah,
because from
it
the get
starts,
go,
yeah.
like this is just one of the most beautifully illustrated comics that I know of.
and so horrifying at the same time.
And from a craft perspective, all I could think of is there are like no cut corners. There are no easy way outs. Everything in this comic isn't picked because it's easy to draw. It's picked with intentionality. And if it's a pain in the ass to draw the fucking pattern on the shirt, our man is going to draw the fucking pattern on the shirt. The obsessive cross hatching.
Yeah, man.
And like, this is not Liefeldian cross hatching.
No,
This is,
not at all.
the fucking man. Let's not like pretend that Barry Windsor-Smith came out of nowhere here. Like, obviously, like his work kind of speaks for itself, from Conan to the X-Men stuff to his independent work. Like, he's obviously one of the greatest illustrators in comics. And when you take away the superhero stuff, the big two of it all, and let him rock, he's still just pouring his heart and soul into this without any kind of deadlines. And I don't know, it's just one of the most impressive pieces I can imagine. Like, these kind of moments of horror and are one thing where it's like, wow, that's kind of shocking and disjointed, and from the twisted mind of ... But like, getting the texture and the hair right,
Yeah.
and the lighting right, and doing all of this without cutting any corners, man, without doing any like
So brutal.
skipping ahead. It's
And like, I would say on that token, not being like a maximalist of like, oh, I'm gonna add every single detail that like a Liefeld. Like,
Right.
They go the other way, literally, with the extreme angle of like, they show a little too much detail. This is, everything is done so tasteful and thoughtful, and even down to like, I mean, obviously this is like a huge part of comics is the lettering and
Yes.
the scripting of everything. Like the interplay of all the balloons and stuff, and how it moves across the page is like kind of different from other books, I would say.
Yeah, for sure. You can get a little bit lost, but it's never, totally chaotic.
Yeah.
And I would also, to that point, in terms of the writing, like, the characters all kind of have their own voice, if it's like dealing with different dialects, or if it's just, their person having distinct personalities. Like, that's not something you take for granted.
Yeah.
And of course you have like these occasional like splash pages, that we just
Last
passed,
one.
which is like a couple ones back here, right there, pointing out the horrors of World War II. And it's like, wow, that's a very detailed, astonishing picture, but like, to me it's almost more impressive that we have a bookcase back there.
Yeah.
That's just like, we're going over it, and they're different sizes. Like, these are mundane details, and they don't need to be there. This could have been just black, and saved our man some arthritis here. This, this little girl's hair could have been an easier style to draw.
Yeah.
All of the above, but it's just the commitment to this story, and I think the net effect is that it just has such a
Huge.
more, I don't know, I don't want to say grounded, but this is like, it's immersive, let's say.
That's the word I was looking for.
Yeah, it feels
I love
very
this stuff.
real, and it's also a world where these comic books exist. And that
Yeah.
kind of comes into play a lot we maybe we bury the lead a little bit here, because I think
Yeah.
the elevator pitch is that this was Barry Windsor-Smith's rejected Hulk
Right.
story, which I think is maybe. I don't think this is one of those comics where you need to be like, oh well, the this monster represents a Hulk, and this guy has psychic powers, so he's Doctor Strange.
Yeah.
I don't think you need to be doing all that. Really good faces, all of
So
it, his
cool.
like the expressions that he gets out of people without like really overdoing it is amazing. These kind of subtleties in the face. This is I don't know. This is a master of comic storytelling. This is just an absolute apex
Yeah, this is
artist.
a mesh. Do you see any like and I just for some reason was drawing the connection with like Jaime Hernandez. There's some like I don't know if it's just because I think of this story as being like this is a really great story, but
Yeah.
the way that it's being like told and like flowed out, it kind of feels like a Los Bros comics.
I mean, it is very there. The supernatural realism element
that's
is
what I'm
heavy,
thinking, yeah.
you know, because it is at its base sci-fi, right?
Yeah.
It's this kid that gets he signed up for this secret military project, and our guy is feeling guilty for essentially sending him off for what he
Yeah.
suspects is his, death. And so he's trying to rescue the boy, and also kind of realizing that in his past, this is him kind of seeing this woman, and he has this sort of psychic power. So he sees this woman, back when he was a little boy, as this goddess figure, and that sort of, I think, when you talk about the Los Broisms, that sort of representational
Yeah.
storytelling that isn't necessarily bound to, the hard facts. I think that's maybe where some of those things come through. And that psychic ability, it's again, when I think I read it the first time, I was like, that's kind of tacked on. I don't really. It's a little like it's just a Shining. We're just doing that, But I think it's important, particularly in regards to World War II and the Nazis playing such a heavy role, because that kind of element of not especially linear, logical, factual thinking is the kind of thing that would be essentially stomped out in a more fascist nation. Nazis, ironically, were pretty obsessed with this esoteric and occultism, but they also didn't really. It wasn't part of their party line, so to speak.
Yeah, it was like kept in the back.
Right,
basically.
right. And so, this kind of person is for just about every reason you can imagine, is the kind of person that the Nazis would be trying to stomp out, both a world in which this power could exist or be real, and anyone who had that power, or it would be experimented on and
exploited.
Yes, absolutely. It couldn't just kind of be, and so I think I understand more why that kind of cheesiness
As
of
like
it.
a symbol, even just
Yes,
in the story.
yes,
It's like a quick way to connect those like themes, I think, for people.
right, and of course it also allows the plot to move forward for him to feel connected to the boys who got experimented on and try to kind of figure out what's going on there, and plus him kind of having this psychic connection to the home itself that he grew up in as they return there. It's sort of, I don't know, it all plays in.
It does have a Shining sort of element.
For
now that
sure,
you're saying that,
know.
definitely.
And this is a very, again, in terms of just, this is the kind of thing that impresses me a lot, is that we're breaking, how many reference photos are you cracking out to get these different models of cars straight, and to get, this action scene that could have been paced out pretty quick. This could have been a couple splash pages or something, but instead we're really getting into the reads of it.
Yeah, I mean, just even in the like just the types of movements that are happening, and like there's not a lot of those action.
Yeah,
lines
it's not
and,
exactly
like-
Marvel method.
Right.
But that's kind of why I keep coming back to how just laborious it is and how dedicated to this story our man was to go through and give us something that's, I don't know, I think a little elevated or classy or whatnot.
It's definitely like classy is a good way to put it. I thought this was a really elegant comic for the type of material
Right.
that it's like exploring. It is like a much more of a it's grotesque but done in a tasteful way.
Yeah, and I think it all serves this story. And I mean, there's a lot of like transgressive work here, and I think a lot of that is to there's our
There's the
detail
guy.
here.
So Bailey, that's the character here.
Yeah, it's Billy Bailey, right? Which
Mhm.
is, again, if you want to really get into it, it could just as well be Bruce Banner,
Banner.
Um,
Yeah.
And yeah, this is sort of, so they're, to my understanding, there genuinely was like a lot of Nazi scientists imported into the U.S. Under Operation Paperclip to kind of get their great science. So this stuff wasn't, obviously, I don't think they were making Monster Men, but I don't think, again, in terms of ghosts kind of haunting the 20th century, I think, if you bring these evil men over to gain their knowledge, I think maybe, and you see this in, what do you call it, when this kind of gun is that, the Nazi gun, howitzer?
Oh,
So that, every time the guy picks up this gun, he's like, possessed and haunted by these Nazi spirits. So it's like, in that sense, how much of the Nazi technology that we got has, some of that energy laid over in it. That's for, my little esoteric diggers
I
too.
didn't even think of that as like the gun is being like possessed, but I think you're right.
Well,
because
yeah, I
he
mean-
takes it from later on in that room.
Right. And, the gun kind of speaks to him. And there's a lot of that in this comic, again, which I kind of didn't appreciate so much the first time
Yeah.
around. But, like, people will walk into rooms and just be possessed by, maybe not possessed necessarily, but they'll be having dialogues with these ghosts. And, of course, this family is kind of just more in tune with that. That's
Yeah.
their kind of gift. And it's played as somewhat... what's the word for it? Paranormal,
Mhm. It's very like if like this moment,
Yes.
like especially is really
where she astral projects herself to kind
Yeah.
of divert the.
it's very Akira. I'll
Right.
say that. Which I don't think he's like necessarily doing a take on that.
Yeah, I wouldn't say there's like, and it's almost rare to see in like a modern book something that doesn't really have a lot of manga influence.
Yeah, for
But this
real.
is very much so like apex Western comics.
Definitely.
Like there's we're not doing some Scott Pilgrim bullshit here.
This is very traditionalist.
Yes.
But
No.
not being traditional, because I feel like it doesn't read like a DC or Marvel book. at all.
No. I mean, this is something like this is just this is what you do when you're really, really fucking good.
True.
And you're kind of bored.
Hence the Fantagraphics. I
Yeah,
think.
yeah. I mean, for them to, you can't. Not a lot of ex-Marvel guys. Not a lot of guys that spent a lot of time obsessively drawing Wolverine in the '80s have Fantagraphics books. Correct me if I'm wrong, but pretty sure it's our man BWS and no one.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah,
Tough, man.
some great foliage. This is,
So weird.
this is our man on the run here, this monster man, and he's kind of returning home.
Yeah.
And this is like, this is a Hulk comic premise. This is a
Yeah.
very easy story to just draw a monster man running away, a Frankenstein kind of creature, just on the run. And you could milk this and make it a, espionage thriller, and at the end have everything wrap up nicely. But I think where this comic goes and really just makes a meal out of is this monster is like man's like childhood and the abuses of it, and in a lot of ways I think it's this story of the 20th century that I'm kind of obsessed with because we're kind of living in it, which is people coming back from World War II completely fucking mind broken, completely PTSD ridden, and having no means of dealing with it, coping.
I mean, that's when the story is starting.
Yes.
Right here.
And that generation just, you know, was, if you were a kid, if you were a baby boomer, the much maligned baby boomers, this was their life. Was this kind of situation, living in a house with someone who is just traumatized by war. And you had, because World War II was so gung-ho and everyone was so involved in it, you think of how many households this was, you know, and these children, again, I mean, I try to see all sides here, and I'm as, you know, I have as much gripes with the boomers as everyone else. But this was their lives. They were just cornered in these households with people who were trying to forget this traumas that they saw of a fucking war. And then those kids were shoved into Vietnam, and it's like, you know, I don't love how the boomers themselves have processed that trauma. I think tends to lean a little more me, gimme, than dismantling these power structures that turn them into these kind of monsters.
Yeah, it like flipped from being the patriotism from the World War II generation of they came back with the trauma, but also we were like the best, the best generation or something like that.
Greatest generation,
and
I don't think they named themselves that, but you know.
But looking back,
that's not like, nothing.
They were kind of put on this pedestal, which it's like.
I mean, you can't really. I mean, you beat the Nazis. That's a pretty fucking
huge.
Big pedestal. I wanted to give some attention to these diary pages.
Yeah,
this one, this is very, very Cerebus to me.
Yeah, definitely.
Dance, right? And you know, Sim was very influenced by Barry Windsor-Smith to begin with, so there is a bit of a full circle thing here. But you know, using their own handwriting again, this is a way of kind of getting the internal brain mechanics of this gal here, who's kind of also thrust into this fucking horror show.
Yeah.
And
she has definitely her own demons that she's battling.
Yeah, and they don't make her a perfect victim, which I think is very. That's what you do when you're a good writer. Instead of making her this innocent person, you kind of show that, you know, you sympathize with her, of course, but in the end, she does kind of succumb to this evil in a way.
Yeah, she breaks for sure.
And you know, you could include her in as a titular monster. But Jesus, doesn't this look fucking phenomenal? Again, just amazing expressionism. Way too much. Like, hair is so fucking hard to draw.
Crazy.
And like figuring out the volume of a curly hair and putting it in, like how it'll sit in the hat. This stuff is such advanced level illustration.
Tough as nails. Tough as nails.
I will scream for the rooftops for everyone on Earth to read this comic. It's not enjoyable.
It's so fucking good.
This is very like, you know, the dark side of Americana expressed in these little panels here.
And he's British, right? He's a British guy looking at American culture.
I guess so. I mean, and that would be the you know, I guess maybe why you have this kind of clear understanding of, like I said, that trajectory of the 20th century of a generation of kids raised by fucking monsters, and then they raise their own kids with you know, Gen X and millennials who are just fucking dealing with all this bullshit. I'd like to say, at least for as soft as we are, what a fucking great page.
That's amazing.
You know, as avocado toast as everyone wants to point us out to be, like, I like that there's some kind of, I don't know, move away from this, even though this is very much so the foundation we were given. Here's that kind of possessed gun, right, where he kind of hears this, and you saw this
Jeremy.
in the very beginning, like you want to go back to the very first panel.
one.
And this is where he first, I mean, we're kind of thrust into it, of course, in the beginning, and now you can kind of see him being like possessed, and where he kind of knocks the kid's eye out, and that's a big source of misery for the little boy.
Sure.
And that kind of, there's that like possession that you also see when he's holding this gun that he was kind of got as a trophy from the W2. And you know, I won't burden you down, but it's the even when the lady picks it up, she kind
Something
of
happens,
senses some kind of evil from it, and I like that it's a texture that I like when I read this now, because again, I think that haunting and that idea of this evil kind of energy being in a physical space, being in physical objects.
Mm-hmm.
I think, I mean, I don't know how much,
Remember we were talking about the symbols like a couple weeks ago, like
Right.
the symbology of stuff, and like I think it does carry something that like it just maybe we're somehow in tune on like a molecular level
Right.
to some stuff. Like
here's our the other perspective of the general guy meeting, or the guy that recruited Bailey,
Mhm.
meeting the mom, and you kind of see this weird empath she was at in life.
yeah, it's such a strange, but like how things weave in and out.
Yeah,
Like,
it's non-linear, but I don't think it goes like too far, and it's not cheap in that like you're probably wondering how I got this way, you know.
like the cold open shit.
Yeah, I think they kind of earn it, and I think that's sort of his point in a lot of ways, is that things aren't just a straight line forward. You do have this sort of what's the past is the present, and what's the present is the future. And I don't know, I think it is, I'd like to think that he's getting us to kind of think about those things, and not to look at this as like, oh yeah, those were messed up times anyways. Glad we got that all over with.
Yeah, like-
and not see this as just like an instance of, oh, that was an abusive family. And like, oh boy, that guy was crazy. You know, like the amount of time, and it is a long book, spent on each of these characters really helps us kind of flesh them out and not really veer into just being a caricature. It's almost like can feel tedious when you get into these moments where it's like you have to show the characters longing for each other in this kind of quasi-emotional affair, and her trying to keep her family together. But it's like, again, let's go back to that central cover, that central image on the cover, where it's like, it wasn't a crazy guy, this wasn't an evil, wicked woman. The guy was sent off to war and he'd lost his fucking mind. He was not the same because of the horrors that he saw. And like, you know, it is, you know, America that did this to her. It is America that did this to this household. It is the military industrial complex and the war machine that caused this story and focuses on this story.
And the puzzle, this
and
whole kind of
the
symbology of all the stuff they interact with, especially when it's like character to character, like with the gun,
right,
and with the puzzle here, like you feel like literally the generational trauma being passed through those objects.
Yeah, and this, you know, so they're having this really tense, you know, holiday, and the mom's brother and his wife come over, and they're just like, what the fuck is this freak show? The brother is, if there's anyone who's not a monster in there, it's him, right?
Him, yeah.
Because he's just like, what the fuck did you just say? Like, that's not normal. Let's
explore this.
You're gonna apologize, or I'm gonna beat the shit out of you. And like, as a reader, it's a spoonful of sugar, because it's like, oh, thank fucking God, someone is here to kind of like help us get out of this. You know, we have someone we can root for, because this whole situation is so dug into that it's like impossible to get out of. So there is at least a little bit of a thrill watching like this monster get handled by you know, a real man.
Someone, yeah.
But then, of course, because it's you know, this is a good figure going right here. Like, come on, let's not ignore what happens when you have a really good illustrator taking his time with stuff. We can appreciate some good old boom biff pow kind of work here. And yeah, of course, this is essentially, what do they call it? A family annihilation. He murders. He's just. It's the logical conclusion. Everyone fucking dies.
Yeah. You let this guy back.
Yeah, this guy that could have kind of pulled, you know, he has his survivor's guilt of sort because he could have pulled the plug earlier and he let it get out of hand.
Kind of a lot, like, but I think it's so, like, true in that sense of, like, remember that movie of the Willem Dafoe's in it with the brothers and they're like Catholic, like, kids and some shit. I forget what the movie's called, but they talk about, there's this biblical quote, the only thing for good men like to allow evil is to just do nothing. Right. And like I think that's part of this, is like the good exists in the evil and the evil exists in the good, and like kind of in the passivity of all that shit. And like you know, like the guy gets stamped out in the beginning trying to save, or not trying to save, but trying to like redeem himself somehow and saving the Bailey character.
And I think in a sense, I feel it's not just enough. Okay, this is a weird tangent, but like roll with me. I think it's interesting right now in America and in politics right now. I think there's, you know, a lot of talk about, you know, America's participation in the genocide in Israel. Yeah. And there's a side that's like, well, I don't want to fucking just fund this shit, take away the money, you know, which is a good starting point. And that's like a very easy sell to, like, you know, right-wing types. And a more interesting nuanced take is like, to me, is like, well, what about the people that have been done, you know, have had their homes destroyed by our funding? You know, it's not, I don't think it's enough to just say, don't give them money when you gave a bunch of money to someone, they fucking ravaged someone's home, and then you're like, well, we stopped giving them money, so we're good. And it's that lack of compassion. In a sense, the guilt that this guy feels, because, you know, he quote unquote does the right thing, right? Because he, you know, offs the guy who we've been watching being the worst dude. But his guilt that he feels in the end isn't so much the lack of intervention, it's that he let this kid just go to the foster homes, which is what let him into the monster. And it's almost like, you know, what I'm kind of saying here, where it's not enough to just, there's like this fucking macho tough guy shit where we're just like, fuck them, give them nothing. But it's like, there are victims of this stuff, and they need to be, I mean, I don't have any fucking, I'm not like, you know, carrying water for any party. I'm not like aligned in any kind of way. Really, I just want a more compassionate world. You know, this talk about patriotism and everything, it's like, all it really boils down to, I'm not trying to like have one side win or over another side or anything. It's just, I need, does it make for a kinder world to be waving a flag? You know?
It doesn't do much.
I obviously think it's a terrible world to give money to the people who are committing a genocide, but like, I think there's this framing where it's like, we're not taking care of the little kid. You know, there are victims of these things, and we want to like, well, in war in general, it's like, well, you know, some excuse will be made, well, country A is, you know, beating up country B, so we're gonna go and kill country A. But it's like, country B is still fucked up. And like, it's cool. I don't like think war is ever cool, but it's like one thing to smite a bully. I don't think anyone has a problem with that. But I think it's another thing to look after the people who have been the recipients of that violence. And that's a much harder non-comic book superhero way of looking at things, right?
Absolutely. Like,
and it's in the stories it's in the stories Barry Windsor-Smith grew up reading, where the good guy beats the bad guy, and the comic ends, but it's like the bad guy made a whole fucking city of rubble, and
Right.
like there not a lot of attention put into the worlds that person ravaged, and these are a more complex, nuanced human conversation to have than just shooting a bad guy, and
Yeah.
that's what makes this work, I think, have so much substance and weight, is that it looks at all these things from all these angles, and
This was so fucked.
it kind of concludes in this wild ass way.
It's
Like
so
that's the
noir.
family
Yeah.
drama, that's America, that's like the story they're telling, that's all as satisfying as it's going to be.
So that's Mr. Bailey,
Yes.
my dad.
This is kind of we have to see him snap, right?
Yeah.
And you see this horror show of Nazi atrocities that he's in, and even in this bunker where all these experiments have happened. I mean, this is really thrilling storytelling.
I
Like-
did not expect this at all.
The-
Let's just say I did not see that coming.
Because there's all these like backstabbings and machinations within these Nazis that know that they're kind of done for. You see this guy try to get one over on the GIs and try to pretend that he's one of the victims that needs saving, and
Yeah.
like you just see how fucking devious and diabolical he is, and then it's like, well, the story goes back even one further, and you see, this is our man just having these fucking.
Fucked up nightmares.
They do not like the lack of punches pulled. It is so
It's intense, man.
visceral and raw, the imagery that they go with, and I think this is where he's eating his fingers, and that kind of plays into one of the earlier scenes where he's hallucinating essentially that the meal that the mom made was human fingers, and it's like this is sort of like explaining where all that comes from, and it's like you want cannibalism, you want
you
rape,
got it.
you want every kind of violence, and crafted in just such a amazing way. Now, don't worry.
The guns coming into play.
We're getting it again. Like, there's not really any taboo or transgressive kind of imagery that isn't present here.
It keeps unfolding worse and worse, and this is
What a fucking interior there. And we're doing a flashback from that, and so this is I don't know.
fucking gnarly.
I just I'm not above saying that I just enjoy seeing fucking gruesome, horrific imagery like this. So there's part of me that's titillated.
Yeah.
But with that being said, someone who has those kind of penchants for titillation or whatever, I'm open to. I have a little edgelord in me that I like to feed every now and then.
This whole unfolding too, I was like, this is, I don't know, this whole like, it's like he's like the madman in the orchestra.
Well,
He's just
yeah.
like, boom,
I mean, you have to see the cruelty and inhumanity in these Nazi
Huge.
experiments, which I think, obviously we all kind of know and get.
Yeah.
Obvious, of course, like no new information there, but by kind of showing it all with no details spared, it's sort of like driving home that, we see this guy working for the U.S. government earlier in the comic, it's like, these were the guys we brought on. And I don't know, maybe I'm getting my facts conflated here, but I don't think that's like a crazy conspiracy or tinfoil hat.
No,
we
that's-
just did that. The CIA just got
It was
Nazi
a
scientists
thing.
in the work, so it's like, we have to confront the morality of that.
And they pumped them through different countries. Like at first they didn't say they were from a Nazi organization. They extradited them into other countries, gave them new papers, and then said, look, we're with,
It's an Argentinian.
Yes.
It's just a guy from Argentina. What's
and
up?
they would bring him in and say, this incredible scientist is going to help our country. Yeah, that did happen.
And again,
it's
just
currently
as,
happening.
this homunculus monster man that's been mutated by America is like haunted by the horrors of his home. our home, we have to kind of be haunted by those horrors that our country has done.
Well, this represents, I think, like how I was saying, the effects of this is like the generational
Right.
damage that happens is
Yeah,
this,
and-
because unknowingly he became this monster,
Well,
this
yeah,
rage.
he was a victim of these kind of experiments.
Yeah.
And, you know, of course, it's like when you see how he was raised, it's like, well, what other fucking way could he have gone, you know? And that's still how
Fucked.
the military operates on. It's, you know, I mean, we're in a military town. It's not,
Yeah.
you know,
It's very callous. It is very callous of just like this sort of, like you're saying, like you go in, you be a cowboy for a second, you pretend to be a hero, and
Yeah.
then you just let the pieces lie, like because they're not useful anymore to make you feel like a winner.
and you know, you're not. I don't feel like you went to a poor school unless you had like a recruitment or ROTC presence there.
100%.
You know, like
Or you took a test and they said that it was like an aptitude test, and it
Yeah.
automatically signed you up to the national fucking.
I mean,
guard.
I was I was a substitute teacher for a minute in my life, and I
Yeah.
went to the rich schools to substitute. And
Oh,
let me
yeah.
tell you, there weren't recruitment officers like there were at the
Yeah,
at the schools that the high school I went to. So it's like,
Yeah.
you know, it's not a place, it's not a route you go in life when you have a lot of options.
Right.
And this is a great like sequence here of the kid sort of channeling her dad,
Yeah.
and it's a little bit woo woo, you know, but
Yeah.
at the same time, they didn't just leave that kind of thread hanging. They showed
Yeah, it was set up well.
yes, and I think they kind of earned that
Yeah.
payoff of all the ghosts kind of coming together
In that house.
Yeah, and our parade here.
Superman, it's Santa Claus. I mean, the Americana, like this is like the distorted Americana for
Yeah,
sure.
or just an actual presentation,
Yeah, like
an
a
unflinching
true-
view of the reality
sure.
of where that Americana comes from, you know.
Yeah.
And ultimately, you know, because of this supernatural element, we can have the daughter kind of have a nice moment with her dad have a moment with the kid, and everyone can kind of be at ease. This is like a take on that like famous landscape painting, right?
Where she's
Yeah.
like kind of far away. I forget what that's called, but it's so good.
Yeah. So we're kind of back in this, you know.
Edward Hopper, is it? I'll look it up and I'll see if I can put it on the video. Yeah.
And yeah, our kids gets a little bit of peace in the afterlife.
Mhm.
The homunculus is no more. And yeah, it's all very, very well revealed. And we finally get our in the afterlife in a haunted house. We get the piece
The
that
happy family.
yes, the happy ending. The Starman signing off at the very end.
Dude, I can't believe 365 pages.
Penciled, inked, written, lettered.
God, dude.
I mean, this is, yeah, I think, I mean, I've badgered you about this book probably since before we started doing this podcast. I'll say it to everyone, I'll scream it from the rooftops. Like,
Yeah.
this is one of my favorite comics of this century. I think it's
Yeah.
a masterwork, and it's really not discussed as much as I would like it to
So
be.
surprising to me. That,
I've seen the.
Yeah.
I see it in a lot of libraries. This is a library copy, and I think that's at least one nice thing about it. Is I think it maybe got in those kind of circles. So if you're listening at home, you check your library so you don't got to pay up for it. You know,
Yeah.
not that they're. And I mean, I have a copy of it. I paid up for it because I think this is amazingly worthwhile to own, even if it is not something you're going to revisit often because it's
Yeah.
just so fucking harrowing. But
This is like a perennial like comic for sure. Not, or even if that's like you probably read this every few years just to get fucking rocked.
yeah, man, and I just can't stress enough. Any random page you open,
Yeah.
there's just like
Detail.
looking at this smoke. Like, why is there like the work of drawing a smoky room? Not necessary. You don't have to do it, but it gives it so much more depth. And what do we got here? We got like all these pots and pans and kitchenware stuff, these uniforms, the outfits, the corsage, like the details and everything. Again, this is not like that obsessive outlaw style where you just draw a buff guy with a million veins and biggest guns and like, fetishize all the gears and everything and all the vehicles. Like, this is actual artistry.
This is storytelling.
Jesus, just sweat equity, man. There's so much work, and I don't know how long we have to wait for another BWS story to drop. I could easily understand wanting to take a couple of years off after putting this out, but like,
as of now, he said he's retired.
So he's out.
So he said he might come back to write a comic.
Okay,
but not draw one.
I think the atmosphere of the black and white, the cross hatching, all of that kind of contributes to the story. So I don't know. It would be something else if he were to just write. And man, I would not want to be the guy that has to get a BWS script and try to like, this one takes place in the stars. So there's just a bunch of starry backgrounds, This is a pitch black room, so we're just doing word bubbles. Like, I don't think he's letting you get away with any of that mess.
No way.
But I do think that, razzle dazzle of the artwork aside, because that is, I still think, like at the forefront, because he's just so fucking good. Like, the art will always overshadow the story, but I find the story, especially on the reread, like so compelling that like, if he just wants to write, I will pick up, anything that he has his name on, because to see someone get so good and have such a teeth in the kind of story he's telling so late in his career, this is the work of art that you just want to see every great artist do once in their life. I can't imagine doing something this accomplished and feeling like there's anything left you need to say. It's
definitely
just so impressive. And I don't know. I guess at that maybe we should. That's a good place to.
I think that's that sums it up.
BWS said everything he needs to say. I said everything I need to say.
And I don't have anything more to add.
Yeah.
So that's perfect.
So yeah, if I'm going to call this mandatory reading.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Okay.
If this is along with Watchmen, obviously, like one of those just banger and like not touchstone, but what would you say? It's like an example of just what this medium can offer.
Yeah, a once in a generation moment, really. I mean, if you think of all the things that have to align, for Barry Windsor-Smith to do this story in such an uncompromising way, like, it's wholly unique, and not a light read, not fun, not something you pick up and go about your day on. But, not everything can be bone, not everything can be like, wow, that was a fun, cool, entertaining read. Like, no, some shit is just an ugly ass mirror that you have to look at and fucking deal with. And I don't think it's exploitative. I don't think it's cheap. I don't think it's saying anything that is just to get he's not preaching to the choir. He's not doing this to get good boy points or
exhibitionist or anything like that.
No,
it's so good.
He has a story to tell, and I think it's a story that will enrich your life.
And I think the more the years will go by, I think it'll start becoming in like the actual canon of books. Like, I think it has a good following right now. Yeah,
there's press for it for sure. Like, people know about it, but I kind of refuse to believe they're reading it. You know what I mean?
Also, same.
It's like, the guy from X Force, he did his own fucking Weapon X. He's got his own comic now. I've seen it.
Yeah, it's pretty sick.
It's like, crack that motherfucker open. Man. Learn a thing or two.
And if this is any sort of like pathway into it is like the Weapon X stuff is amazing, and I think that sort of, and the Conan stuff. I read
Yeah.
the Conan stuff recently. It's so fucking good, and he takes that same passion and just does it in his own work. So like now he's untethered by Marvel or DC or whatever to tell his own story, and like that's what you get. You get a really fucking great storyteller doing his thing.
Yeah, this is cannot recommend enough. And I guess with that,
Yeah.
at ease.
Boom.
So these things go out